All right, we're going through Revelation. However, we took a jump back to Genesis. Interesting stuff going on. The last church in the last days, the church, and that's what the church of Laodicea represents, may very well be the only church that, in general, does not believe the Genesis account to be completely accurate. They believe another account, Big Bang with bacteria basically coming out of sludge, and that then replicating and slowly becoming like a tadpole, a frog, an amphibian becomes a reptile then becomes some type of mammal, and that ultimately we get to some type of ape men, cavemen, and then Adam and Eve. I don't think that is accurate. There are other theories that I'll talk about this here. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the surface of the deep. And the Spirit of God was moving over the surface of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. There's a theory called the gap theory that says in between these two verses, when God created the heavens and the earth, that the proper translations of this in Hebrew says this was a recreation of some sort, meaning he created it. The devil and his followers, they're mentioned in Isaiah, the fall of Satan, are cast down to the earth or within the earth where hell would be, or some realm that's sealed to the earth. And the earth became something other than what it was, because of these creatures being here, these demonic creatures, these fallen angels. And the earth was formless and void, and there was darkness. And then God said, "Let there be light." And then God saw that the light was good, and then God separated the light from the darkness, and God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening and there was morning. That was the first day. And then we get into, God starts talking about here in the Bible about there's a firmament overhead. And that's interesting because that comes down during the flood of Noah, right? That's going to come down during the flood of Noah, but that protected the earth. It was like, I know I can only describe it, but you must have looked at earth from outer space and it must have looked like a giant blue ball because there was water all around it. And it kept the earth a constant, I should say mild temperature, maybe 80 degrees, I don't know. Plants and animals and people lived longer, grew bigger and stronger. That's what the Genesis account reports to us as you read through this. And there's some historical information, ancient literature and fossils that may show us that there were animals living in what are now frozen areas that were animals that should be only living in subtropical areas. There is evidence to point to a young earth. You can trace back the genealogy to Adam, which would put the earth at only around 7,000 years old. Also, there are some problems with dating, carbon dating, radioactive dating, because the earth was created out of elements. Are we dating elements did God just pull them from somewhere? Or did he just instantaneously create them? So was he pulling an element that's already been sitting around for a couple of million years somewhere in outer space? He puts it all together. Then there wasn't constant. It wasn't a constant situation, scenario over years. We know that the fall occurred, or here, before the fall of Satan, the earth was out form and void, and darkness was over the surface of the deep. Maybe the earth was different then. So you can't use radioisotopes, carbon dating to date things, assuming everything has remained constant from the first element to 2020, because you need a sliding scale, or you need to know things were different back at this end, and things were different this way, and then this way, and this way, and this way, and you're trying to date things constantly, and you're going to come up with just wrong data. You're not going to have the right information trying to date things that way. And then we know there was the fall with Adam. That changed the earth. And we know the earth cataclysmically, was changed with Noah. We know it was changed then. So we know of several changes that would really prevent science from being able to accurately date things and come up with the numbers of millions and billions. However, it could fit fine with, like I said, the gap theory between Genesis verse 1 and 2, that maybe that's when Satan fell and some things were going on back then. But you know what? What really matters most is that God created. We want to know God created, because if you know God created you, then you should know there is a purpose and a plan for your life. There's things for you to be given to you. There's talents and gifts. And as you read through the New Testament, you see that God loves you so much, he doesn't want to just come alongside you and help you. He wants to come inside of you, be within you, have you be born again, and be eternally with him. And this is what the book of Revelation gets to, the revealing of Jesus. He came down and he was a servant leader who came to be slain as a lamb, as a sacrifice for you and me. But when he comes back in Revelation, he comes back as the mighty warrior, Jesus Christ, who's not going to tolerate sin anymore. He's bringing heaven to earth, and anybody can be involved with that. You can be black, white, Chinese, short, small, whatever your cult or ethnicity is, male, female, whatever you are, you can participate in that. But you have to, by faith, you have to believe in Jesus. You have to, and then you become born again, and you will have access to the kingdom. But if you don't, you automatically become a rebel to God. You're a rebel, and you're preventing all these other things from happening. At least you're in the way of all these other things happening. And he's like, well, heaven's coming through, and heaven, to be in heaven, you have to be born again. So all of this stuff kind of gets pushed out and over, and heaven is brought down to earth. Now, here's the interesting thing. Not everybody in the tribulation, and we'll read that as we get through there, will accept being saved. And they'll have to live here, and they'll be forced to obey God. And that's why there's a second opportunity, like similar to the Garden of Eden, where there has to be a choice. There had to be the choice of obey God, don't eat the fruit, and you'll have all of this. But then there's that one thing. If you do this, you turn over the deed of planet Earth. God gave it to Adam with Eve, and they will turn that over if they disobey God and they go and they eat that apple. They gained knowledge and wisdom, and what I call they could see the matrix. What they really were experiencing was the truth. They were living in harmony with God, and now they accepted the lie of Satan, unfortunately, which clouded everything and brought cancer and death and violence to the earth. So I'm not sure how clear I made that all. I think I tried to take a lot of information and squeeze it into just a few minutes. But we'll get back to discussing Revelation in just a few. I'm going to shut this video off and talk to my Bible study group here with my son.